Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the report with me, Yasmin Khatun. On tonight's programme, we'll be looking at Turkey as the country grants legal status to over 1 million Syrian refugees currently residing in the country, and the Ebola virus as a British aid worker is being treated for the disease here in Britain. But first, another Bangladesh Jamaat-e-Islam leader has been sentenced to death by a domestic court set up to try war criminals from the nation's independence struggle in 1971. I've been following the story. The International War Crimes Tribunal in Bangladesh has sentenced leading Jamaat-e-Islam figure Attar al-Islam to death in the 16th verdict from the court. He has been sentenced for rape, mass murder and genocide during the country's 1971 War of Independence. The 62-year-old is Assistant Secretary General of Jamaat-e-Islam, the nation's largest Islamic party. Various figures from the now outlawed party have also been sentenced by the court, with Abu Bakr Mollah executed last year. Protests continue to engulf the country amid tensions between those in support of the court's proceedings and those who believe it to be a political tool for the current ruling Awami League. Proceedings in the International Crimes Tribunal have been widely condemned for being used as a tool for political manoeuvring, with rights groups citing that they've fallen short of international standards. In response to the verdict, Jamaat-e-Islam has called for a nationwide shutdown. Joining me on Skype now from Cardiff is human rights lawyer and academic Muffasil Islam, and in the studio, European spokesman for the party, Abu Bakr Mollah. Abu Bakr, can I come to you first? Jamaat calling for a nationwide shutdown for the next 2 days. How will that impact Bangladesh?
It is the democratic right of the people of Bangladesh and the members of the Jamaat-e-Islami to call for strike as members of the Jamaat and a large number of people of Bangladesh consider that the verdict as witch hunting. It's nothing but a judicial process. It's a political show trial to destroy Jamaat-e-Islami by killing Jamaat-e-Islami and giving a very bad name to the Jamaat leaders that they are responsible for the killing and genocide committed in 1971. We agree that the crimes have been committed. By who has committed all those crimes? It should be conducted through a fair judicial process. It was initially identified by the investigation committee formed immediately after 1971. The members of the Pakistani army was responsible for all those crimes and genocides. But suddenly, Mr. ATM Azharul Islam, the Assistant Secretary of Bangladesh Jamaat-e-Islami, has been prosecuted for superior command responsibility. During 1971, he was a student of A-level. He was a 19 years old boy. And how he can be responsible being a commander on armies, members of the Pakistani armies. A civilian boy of 19 years old has been charged for superior command responsibility for committing genocide. And it was said in the charge that the Pakistani armies were under his command. It is so ridiculous, unbelievable. A civilian boy of 19 years old had superior command responsibility on members of the Pakistani armies, where several majors, brigadiers were under him, as government has alleged. It is absolutely ridiculous and unbelievable.
Okay, Muffasil, can I come to you now? We know that an appeals process will begin, and it will be taken to the appellate division, well, according to the legal representatives of Mr. Attar. What do you think will be achieved out of this? Will the verdict possibly change? From other cases, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen.
Well, that's the thing. If you take the tribunal into consideration, you have to take on board the International Crime Tribunal Act 1973, which was in fact revived by the present regime. Although they didn't want to revive it initially, but later on they revived it to make some happy people on their side. If we look into WikiLeaks, the leaks from the US State Department, it was clearly mentioned in the leak that the Awami League hardliners were out there to destroy Jamaat Islamic political parties, that's for sure. So if we take that into account and also take that the criminals or so-called criminals, which we do not know yet because there is no way to prove it because the judicial process is questionable for so many reasons, they were accused, were tried under the 1860 Act as well. So if you take into 1860 penal code into account, if you take the definition of a man, as Mr. Mollah was telling very well there, that he was hardly, in fact, not even 19, probably 18 to my calculation. So the definition of a man under the penal code of Bangladesh under section 10 is a man of any age. So if you do not take his youth into account, he was a very tender age person, and also taking into consideration that Rajakar ordinance was valid and a legal document during that time. So if Mr. Azhar did join the Rajakar party or even Al-Badr al-Shams, they were not doing anything illegal at per se under the definition of legal terms. So he was a young man. Whether he was with someone who were carrying out atrocities, we do not know. There is no way to prove it. So at the inception of collection of evidences, and we have so many complaints about harassment of witnesses, and witnesses being taken out of the country, being found in another country's jail and all that. So taking all into account, where the very inception of the case is flawed, what can we achieve in an appeal? Well, I'll be surprised if we see the verdict turned down. But I'm very much afraid this Awami regime is out there to take out Jamaat leadership and destroy the political party, as very well so my friend, Mr. Barrister Abu Bakr Mollah put it.
Can I bring the conversation back to Mr. Mollah? Now, the move has been welcomed by some. The Ganajogoron Manch, the Shahbag protesters, as we know earlier in the year, some have come out to congratulate the tribunal in these verdicts. This is the 16th one we've seen, the 11th of religious leaders, including other figures, as we saw with Abdul Qadir Mullah, who was executed last year. Not everybody in Bangladesh is against these tribunals.
First of all, it is a barbaric demand to demand someone that he just only should be killed or hanged. Someone can demand for the justice, but someone cannot demand only death penalty. It is a barbaric demand. It is not a judicial demand. It is a very nonsense demand, which has been government has patroned those illegal thugs in the Shahbag.
If I can add there, the ever-shrinking Janojagaran Manch are demanding so many things. They're rather trying to dictate what the judgment should be. So rather, they are the ones who are meddling with the judicial process. So I believe that the ever-shrinking number of the Janojagaran Manch are the fringe few who are not telling what the general mass are demanding. So putting back into a question, like me, I am someone who is not politically involved in any political
what
party.
I was going to say is that government has government has patroned, finance, provide manpower, and government supporters who are there.
The government denies this.
What did you say?
The government denies this.
Oh, yeah, government is always denies that. You know that the Prime Minister said in the Parliament that I wish if I could join in the Shahbag march, Shahbag protest. She said in the Parliament. And according to the demand of the Shahbag, young, emotional boys, angry boys who doesn't have any sense of legal system, who can only cries for the death penalty, which is beyond any sensible approach of in a civilized world. Hasina, the Prime Minister, she has said that my mind is in the Shahbag Janojagaran Manch, and she wished she could join with them. And she said that judges should have considered the demands of the Shahbag. So due to the demands of the Shahbag, Hasina had changed the law in the Parliament, and after changing the law, Qadir Mullah was hanged. So government and the Shahbag Janojagaran Manch and the tribunal, they acted together to hang Jamaat leaders, to give death penalty to the Jamaat leaders, to found guilty to the Jamaat leaders. So it is a political show trial.
We saw the verdict for a Jatiya Party member just last week. So he wasn't a Jamaat leader. He was another figure from a party who is allied to the government, then being prosecuted. So you can't say it's just Jamaat-e-Islam.
Okay, most of the leaders have been targeted from the members of the Jamaat-e-Islami, not from the members of the Jamaat-e-Islami, top leadership of the Jamaat-e-Islami. Jamaat-e-Islami have been targeted. And after that, when international community criticized this tribunal is nothing but to destroy a political party, and government has brought 2 or 3 other persons. But it is mainly created and set up to destroy Jamaat-e-Islami. As most of the top leaders of the Jamaat-e-Islami have been prosecuted first, not prosecuted, it is prosecuted to persecute and to destroy Jamaat-e-Islami, so that by killing Jamaat leaders, so that they can weaken opposition, and so that they can destroy a Islamic political party. It is nothing for the sake of justice. It is nothing for the sake of judicial process or rule of law. It is a witch hunt and political show trial.
Okay, Muffasil, prosecuting to persecute. Are Jamaat-e-Islam even real players as an opposition party anymore?
Well, they are opposition parties, that's for sure. Whether they are recognized by the present brutal regime, that's another thing. Because the 5th of January election was a total sham, that's to begin with, where the main political opposition parties did not participate, and it has been condemned worldwide. But going back to the issue of Jatiya Party leader, I must correct it here that the individual, the leader, the so-called leader of Jatiya Party, was not an active member of Jatiya Party anymore when the trial was going on. And also, Mr. Ershad deserted him. Mr. Ershad keeps on swinging in his role. So I would say that the leader, who was Mr. Kaisar, I think you were talking about, he was not a Jatiya Party leader. And he's not a Jatiya Party leader. He was a Jatiya Party leader many years ago.
But he's not a Jamaat-e-Islam figure either, right? And no, he was a Jatiya Party leader.
Well, they need to bring in some other people.
Because what Mr. Mollah is saying, that this is targeting Jamaat-e-Islam, and we know many Jamaat-e-Islam figures have been prosecuted by the tribunal, but there are other figures also being prosecuted.
Well, when you're talking about 8 out of 10 are from Jamaat, what can you conclude? Just to give it a fair face, they are bringing in some other people from some other parts of the country. But the main target is to persecute Jamaat, that's for sure, no doubt about that.
Okay, so now we're seeing these demonstrations take place throughout the country. What sort of impact will that have? Jamaat-e-Islam again calling nationwide strikes tomorrow and the day after. We saw devastating effects to the economy last year. Is this what we're likely to see again?
Well, we are all against violence. I think Mr. Mollah would agree with me as well. We are all in support of free movement, free show of demonstrations, because that's basic democratic right. But what we do not support, and I do not think the oppositions will say that they support violence, but when the government and their brutal regime and the Chhatru League leaders, the student wing of the present political party, the leaders are saying that they will be going out there to punish the political leaders of the opposition, then what do we expect? They will be the one to start the violence, and violence might erupt when you attack someone might defend themselves. That's what's going to happen, probably, unfortunately.
Okay, Muffasil, before we move on, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, has said these tribunals are necessary and needed for closure for the country in order to move on from the pains of 1971. Is it doing any such thing?
Well, I do agree that we need to address, because we are all against brutality. We are all against somebody carrying on atrocities in the past, no matter when it was committed. So we believe that there were people killed in the 1971. There were people who sided with the Pakistani brutal regime. But the trial needs to be fair. And if you take into account that the European Union passed 3 resolutions saying that they need this trial, but at the same time, the Human Rights Watch and other organizations vastly condemned this process. So if we take into academic researches as well, we'll see Oxford University, several publications condemning the process and calling out to correct the process. If there was an opportunity, if there was a fair government, if there was a democratic elected government, we believe that process might have been better, because there was no foreign opinion asked for, there were no academic asked for, they were not consulted with international experts to how to make it more transparent and more acceptable to the common mass.
Okay, Abu Bakr Mollah, thank you very much. Muffasil, thank you very much for joining us also. Now we have to move on to our next one.